one of the best ways to learn how to be a better artist is to get critiques from other artists, people that you respect, or even from watching the critiques of others and then looking at their art. And so that's what we're going to do in this video today, so stay tuned. So hey there, my name is K. Michael Russell. I am a comic book colorist, and I do these videos on YouTube teaching people how to color comics. And in this video today, we're going to be doing critiques. I asked a few weeks ago in a video to send in artwork, and I got a few pieces in. And I've also picked one of the critiques out of my coloring course for one of my students there. I just wanted to show you guys a few really simple tricks and tweaks, I guess you could say, to improve pieces very simply most of the time. And I chose all of these particularly because it was such simple fixes that really, made a big difference there. And so this first piece is actually from a Reddit user, I believe. His name was Flavor Nuts, who he was very excited that I would be saying his name on my channel. So Flavor Nuts drew this. Hope you enjoy it, or colored this anyway. I think he drew it too. But anyway, so he sent, and this is a pinup or a cover, or a splash page, which is, these are hard to critique. There's, from a storytelling standpoint, it's hard to tell from just one panel and one page. But there were a few things, even about this page as a pinup, you could do to kind of improve it. Now, first off, it's very dark. I don't know if that comes across on YouTube or not, but there's a lot of detail that's lost in here, because it's just the colors that are chosen are very dark. There's actually this red blood is basically looking black, and I covered this in the how to avoid muddy colors video. There's a lot of black in these colors. If you color pick some of these, you can watch the color picker over here, and you can see these are very, very low in that window, and in those cases, even the quote, the highlight, quote unquote, on this, whatever this cowl thing is, this guy's got here, even that is very, very dark. And so, and you can see I'm even picking almost any of these colors. These are very, very low in the color picker, which is going to make them print very muddy. So what I did first, now again, I don't have his original files, so take this with a grain of salt. It's not going to be perfect. I'm adjusting a JPEG, which is not the best in the world. But the first thing I did was significantly brighten it up, and then I kind of evened it out a little bit just with adjustment layers, using the levels and hue and saturation. And again, it's a very quick, ugly fix, but it brings out so much more detail, as you can see from where we're coming from to where we are here. And again, even if you want it to be a dark scene, you want to imply darkness, with cool colors and that sort of thing. The other thing I did here is, and again, this is kind of rough and ugly, but I sort of washed this whole bottom area in just one color, this sort of shadowy greenish blue color. And because when you looked at this page before, I'm going to go back here, in black and white, it's all sort of muddy. It all sort of blends together. There's nothing about this this main character here that says, hey, this guy is important. You know what I mean? And this is really the focus of the panel. What I did, again, we got it brightened up, and I added the darker shadows down here. So if you look at the values now, just in black and white, it makes it a little easier to see. Your eye is drawn to the top of this now, to the top of this page, and away from all these guys on the bottom. And one other thing that I really can't quickly adjust here, but is just the level of detail in the rendering is really very simple. Not simple, but it's very similar, I should say, throughout. So the way that, let me get my trusty marker here. So the way this guy is rendered is almost identical to how these guys are rendered down here. And I may have talked about this in a storytelling video, but use the amount of rendering you're doing as a storytelling device. You can go more high contrast and go more detail with your rendering in the places that it's most important, and you can do a whole lot less down here. And I have a few examples here. Well, this cover, I think this is Chris Bacalo. I think I'm saying his name right. You know, Wolverine here, and that color doesn't work at all. Wolverine and who is that? Kitty Pryde, maybe? You can see he's really got a lot of detail and a lot of contrast on these two people. That yellow really pops off the page. But I mean, look at his legs. You know, look at the bottom of her body down here. Very, very little going on from a rendering standpoint here. He's almost just a wash in blue. Same thing in the background, very little rendering, just very cool colors. They all kind of recede into the background. And so your eye, you just can't help but look right here. I mean, your eye's pulled up to that focal point because he didn't spend a whole lot of time rendering all this stuff down here that's honestly irrelevant from, you know, a storytelling standpoint. I mean, it looks good, but it's not important to the scene, you know? So use that. That's one way you can, and I think I picked one more out here, but yeah, that's one way you can kind of draw focus. Same thing here, this page, all the details right here. You know, all the contrast, all the brightness is right there. Everything else is just a wash in one color, basically. You know, it's purple here, purple here. You got this blue color completely surrounding him because for this cover, again, it's just not that important from a storytelling standpoint. This is what is important. Spend your time rendering there. And there is some rendering down here, but we're really not pulling focus at all, you know, to these areas. We're strictly keeping it right there. But other than that, and again, my fixes here are not perfect and they're not pretty, really. So now this one, I couldn't find my original, so I only found the one that I marked up. This is from Giuliano. He's one of my students in my color course from Brazil. And I actually checked this week. I'm up to 54 countries represented in there, which is just insane to me. He did this page, which I got, honestly, was just beautiful. I mean, he spent a lot of time on this page rendering this and did fantastic work. And there was just a few tweaks here, again, that I think would make it read a little bit better. And I apologize for covering it all up with my red circles, but I couldn't find my unedited version here. But I'll run through these real quick too. So you got this scene, you know, a lot of depth here in the first panel. I mean, it goes way off into the distance. He's used color holds back here, you know, to change the color of those lines to push it even further back, which was awesome. Like, that was a great use of atmospheric perspective, which I did in a video not too long ago. But one thing that would have, again, slight tweaks. The color of the water down here is very, very similar to the color of these blue flowers up here. So your brain is going to want to put all of these things on the same plane together. Now, this happens subconsciously, but if you think about planes as in foreground, midground, background. Now, as you go lighter back here and things get less saturated, your eye and brain tends to tell you that, okay, that's further away. When you have those colors that are very similar, even though there's a lot of distance in between, again, your brain kind of wants to flatten the image there. What I recommend that you do is just desaturate these, you know, just go a little darker there on those blue flowers especially. And it would sort of, you know, create a frame here in a way. It's beautiful art, but from a storytelling standpoint, you really want your reader looking past these characters, you know, into the distance here, which they're trying to convey all that space there. So, yeah, I just love this work here. I don't think I had much to say about the second panel. I would probably go a little lighter on her because when you look at this in black and white, it all kind of blends here a little bit. The tiger and the girl, I think maybe it's a boy. I'm not sure actually, but yeah, you know, go a little lighter there, and just to make sure that that character is really, you know, popping off the page there. And I hate that cliche of making things pop, but sorry. In this panel, again, like you tell, he spent a lot of time in here, and it's just beautiful. But you know, sort of a strange purple color over here really sticking out, and some which I thought was a little strong. Other than that, and again, I apologize again for covering this up with these red lines, but he really had this sort of light highlight going across here, which was pretty. But from a storytelling standpoint, I want to separate this, and I'm going to change my color from this. All right. I want to make sure that this is obviously two very different planes in the front and then here in the back, right? So and he set it up pretty well. You know, he's got basically cool colors almost entirely right here. I would just take that a step further. You know, get rid of that. It was a yellowish highlight that kind of ran across here. Really just go darker there and keep it cool, and that way you've got a really cool sort of, you know, cool foreground, warm background. You could even warm up the T-Rex back here a little bit, make him a little bit more brown. And again, that's going to create that depth there from a storytelling standpoint. And then the last one here, again, the values for the characters versus the background was a little close to me. So especially when you check it in black and white, there's sort of get lost, especially if you zoom out. And this is being pretty nitpicky probably, but I would probably go either a little darker in the background slightly to make them pop a little bit more. Is one way to do it, or you could probably go a little lighter on the character, either way. And also, he had a little mushroom or something, almost the exact same color as the lion, or the tiger, or whatever this is. And I would just push that to a different color so that bluish purple there really stands out against everything else in the panel. But again, just fantastic work. I mean, just a few subtle tweaks there, and that page is awesome. That was for a contest, so I hope he does well there. And one more I wanted to run through. And this was Carl. I'm not sure where he's from. He's from the States somewhere, but I didn't find out where. But according to the DeviantArt, he is from the US. So with this page, well, I'm not a fan of lens flares. I know it's easy to do in Photoshop, but to me it's a little distracting. I wouldn't recommend using lens flares. But in general, to me, this panel was a little busy color-wise. There's a lot of different colors in here. And again, it feels a little disjointed. And what I did, just kind of as a quick example, is just used a gradient map to simplify the palette down to just orange and purple. And there's a million ways you could go about doing this, but it just reads a little cleaner, in my opinion. And the clouds are a little busy to me. I mean, they're beautiful. Again, really well rendered. From a storytelling standpoint, it's a little distracting in my opinion, but that's debatable. It's up to you how you want to do your clouds, but it takes a little bit away from the panel to me, especially since he really kept the clouds very similar from panel to panel, and there's a lot of contrast back there in those clouds. So again, they're sort of drawing attention, and your eye is going here, you know. And again, this is all subconscious, but to me, they're a little distracting in that background, when really it should stay pretty simple. The focus should be in the foreground, you know, in all of these panels. And there's some angle problems, you know. That cloud kind of makes sense at that angle, but this cloud wouldn't be at that angle, especially since we're basically looking up. That's a whole other issue there. And then on the last panel, and this was a good panel, again, small tweak here, and I think it's a lot better. He did, you know, make this character more saturated, which is the focal point in the panel, which I like. But you could push it even further, you know. The red here in this guy's shirt is in the same ballpark. I would probably tweak that, you know. Shift it to a different color so automatically your brain's really pulled to that red now, because it's really the only really warm thing in the whole, you know, in the whole panel here. The other thing I did was just sort of threw a more kind of a shadowy blue over these front characters, because before, you know, this skin tone here is exactly the same as this skin tone here, and you really want to exaggerate that atmospheric perspective here, you know, for the sake of the story, because, you know, again, your brain's wanting to put these people in the same level when they're really not going to be. So just doing something to create that separation, There's a lot of ways you could have done this. I don't know if that's the best color to choose. You could go green, you could go, I don't know, I'd probably keep it cool, but anyway, but again, there's no denying now in this panel where your focal point is, and I think it's a little stronger than the original there, which was still not bad, but again, subtle tweaks here. So, and I did give this example, which this is a very extreme example, but it's Humberto Ramos drew this, Edgar Delgado colored it. There's no question in this panel where the focus is. Spidey is red. He's red here. He's red here. Where is my marker? There we go. I am having technical difficulties. There we go. He's red. Spidey's red. He's red. He's red. He's red. But he really saturated and really just desaturated all of these other guys back here. And so even though they still read as red, there's your focal point. Really obvious on the page. So that's kind of an extreme scenario, but don't be afraid to sort of push these techniques all the way. That's one thing I'm still learning every day, that don't be afraid to really shove it out there. And the colors themselves are not as important as creating enough contrast and value so that the page reads the way it's supposed to. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If I may do another one if I get enough art, and do one of those in the near future here. But if you liked it, give me a thumbs up, like it on YouTube. If you didn't like it, you can thumbs down it too if you want. But subscribe to the channel. I do these videos as often as I can. I also have a coloring course, and I've got links for that in the description. So thanks to everyone for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Later.